Mice and Men was requested, I suppose, by someone in my comments on a review I did. I believe it was of The Gunslinger by Stephen King. And while I'm not going to respond to most requests, because I want to read what I want to read, I saw the book was short. I'd never had a request before. So thank you for the request, man. I read the book. It's my first John Steinbeck book. I've never read one before. Not something that I generally venture into as far as genre goes. But it was, well, I guess I'll tell you how it was coming up. So we follow George and Lenny. George is Lenny's caretaker, I suppose. And Lenny is a great big strong guy, but Lenny is retarded. He's mentally ill. It's unclear whether he has like I guess they didn't have diagnosis for this stuff back then, but if today he'd be diagnosed with something, or if he's just like brain damaged or really dumb, or I don't know. It's unclear. But Lenny is not smart, and Lenny's not a thinker. Okay, George takes care of him. But Lenny is great, big, and strong, and he makes a really good worker. And they start on at a ranch where George found him a job, bucking bags of grain, if I remember right. And they, of course, start working in the bunkhouse with a group of guys, the hands working on the ranch, one of which is Curly. He is the boss's son. He doesn't live in the bunkhouse with them, but he does work with them. And Curly has a wife whose name is never given. She's just called Curly's wife. But she's a very pretty woman and a very flirtatious woman with all of the hands. And Curly's got a whole lot of little man syndrome going on. So there's natural trouble stirring there. And Lenny, it's shown that Lenny is a big source of problems for George. George is actually kind of a jerk when he talks to Lenny. He says a lot of real mean things to Lenny, but then he kind of backtracks on it, tells Lenny they got each other and how good their life is going to be together. But Lenny, because he's so big and not smart, he gets in trouble, and then he and George have to skip town. In the past, he's scared a little girl because Lenny likes to touch soft things, so he likes to pet mice that he catches, but he always accidentally kills them because they're too small and he pets them too hard. And this little girl was wearing a dress that was really soft, and he was touching it, and she was trying to get away, and he wouldn't let go. Lenny panicked, wouldn't let go. And that's where our story takes off. It's just with them working on this ranch. Now, I don't think I'll go too much into the rest of the story. Okay. If you want to know what happens fully, read the book. I'm decided to try and step up my review qualities here, kind of try and give it some criteria, some formatting. So I've got 4 criteria that I've decided to look into for books. There is a 5th one, but that is more of a fantasy type criteria, which is world building. For this one, we're going to be looking at the characters, we're going to look at the story, the pacing, and the prose. Okay. So our characters in this, when I think about it, George is actually very understandable. It is natural to get frustrated with someone like Lenny. I mean, George is obviously not perfect. You'd like him to act a little bit different. But he does take care of Lenny, and he's the reason that Lenny has made it this far, basically. And Lenny is, how do you evaluate a character like that? You know what I mean? A character with mental illness. How do you decide whether you think it's well written or not, because I have no idea. He was certainly slightly disturbing to me. Reminded me of like a very small child in the body of a giant, and all the problems that came with that. The rest of the guys on the ranch, along with Curly and Curly's wife, they're fairly shallow characters. They're just, they have one trait or two that propel them through the book, and you don't really need to know much more about them because the story is about George and Lenny. The characters are decent. They're not amazing. I wasn't super interested, but they are decent. As far as story goes, for the large part, there wasn't a huge amount of story. I mean, there is story, but it's a very short book. I'm going to combine story and pacing here. I think the plot was actually rather compelling, but the problem with it is the pacing shoved everything, like the last 2 chapters of the book were where the plot was most compelling, whereas the first half was just a lot of build-up. And there's not that there's anything wrong with build-up, and a lot of books do that, but I think it could have been spaced out more. I do think the things that you learn about Lenny and George are relevant, but still it was a little bit backloaded. And as far as the prose goes, the book was written a little bit strangely. I think this book was written in 1937 or something like that, so that makes sense. They're classic reviews. Often you experience strange prose where the wording is just different than modern language and modern writing. There's also a lot of slang where on a couple times I looked up slang words because I didn't know what they were talking about. So the prose is decent. It is not my favorite prose I've ever read. It is not my preferred type of prose, but it's serviceable. It gets the story across, and it doesn't interfere too much. The story was, surprisingly, I never found that this story dragged on or got dull, but as you can see, it is very short. I think that is actually to the benefit of this book, because if it were long, if this were a 300-page novel, this would be a really dull story, but it works a lot better because of the short length. At the end of the day, I think I'd give this book probably a 3-star rating. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. I don't have any strong feelings about it at all, particularly. I may check out some more John Steinbeck in the future, but like I said, this is not my it's not my forte, not my preferred interest or area. But it is interesting to read books that I normally would not. And again, shout out to who suggested this book. I don't have the comment or anything. I don't know how to do that. I gotta learn how to, take little overlays and things. I gotta learn how to edit better. Thank you all for watching. Thank you very much. If you're a fan of John Steinbeck, let me know in the comments. Let me know what some of his best work is. Let me know what you thought of Mice and Men. That is, what you thought what you thought of Mice and Men. Why is that so hard to say? Anyway, peace out, everybody. Thank you for watching. I know it's been a long time since I put a video out, but I'm going to be hitting you with some more videos. My next one is probably going to be Tarzan of the Apes, a book that I finished a while back. Going to drop a review on that, so keep an eye out. Later, everybody.